So you know the standards have an emphasis on nonfiction. Now I think there's a misnomer out there that English teachers have to drop all of their novels and start teaching manuals and instructions and things like that. That's not true. Literature is a discipline. Literature is important for students to learn how to read and understand. And we want there to be, in an English class, 50% nonfiction. So students are able to build knowledge through reading content-rich nonfiction. What are you doing to infuse nonfiction into your class as you're spending a lot of time on a novel like The Hunger Games?
Well, the anchor text gives you the context for the nonfiction reading you will do. For instance, the big theme, as we've said, for The Hunger Games was survival. So one of the things we did was we looked at an article about survival, and we did a close reading of that article and then responded to that in writing. Then they also looked for other things, such as magazine articles, interviews, which are all nonfiction. Review. We actually started our entire unit with a book review.
Tell me about that.
So because The Hunger Games is such a controversial book and movie, a lot of people wondered why we would pick that kind of book to be our anchor text. So we felt like it was important, not just for our students, but also for their parents, and even for ourselves, to look at an objective review of the book. And why is this worthy of basically being our textbook, of being the basis for our instruction for an entire, what turned out to be a semester? And also, it allowed the kids to have an opportunity to look at what is a review. What value is a book review to me? And we did those things, and then we wrote about it.
Okay. And it gave them a going-in point. It gave them some prior knowledge. What's the book going to be about? You know, and that's part of reviews, or it's part of the discipline of reading literature and responding to it. So what other kind of nonfiction are you using?
Well, we have found a tool that we like to use because it is Common Core based. It is high interest. I think that's a very important, whatever you read, whether it be literature or nonfiction, it needs to be high interest. It needs to engage the student. And it's a bi-weekly magazine that comes out from Scholastic.
This one right here.
That's it.
Okay. And what do you find in a Scope magazine?
Well, basically, just about any activity you can think of that would be related to the standards. There is an opportunity, our jump starts, there's opportunity for practice in the conventions and the language standards. Almost every issue has some form of essay kit, which is a guided, scaffolded way of going through and actually writing an essay. And it's usually on a topic that's of high interest to kids. One of the most recent ones was about the YouTube videos. And are they dangerous because kids are trying to emulate what goes on in YouTube videos? So it's high interest. Then they've got, and this year with the Common Core, they actually have a Common Core focus activity, which is focused on a standard, such as paired text. We've used that with our Hunger Games unit because they recently had an article about orphans and how they survive, and it had a poem, and we actually were able to use in our computer lab, which we use every week. We're actually able to go in there, and it's interactive PDFs where they actually type in and get used to using technology to respond.
I think it's important that schools may not choose this product. There's a lot of different things out there. Some are free. This is somewhat pricey. There's free things like online. There's something called the New York Times Learning Network, which has articles from the New York Times that are free, with lesson plans attached. So, and they're incorporated to science, math, English, social studies. So there's a lot of different places you can go to find nonfiction.
Danny, one of the oldest is the newspapers and education programs that most major newspapers
They do.
have. And
USA Today has one, I believe.
Right. Most of your larger, for instance, we're very close to Athens, Georgia. The paper there has one where they'll bring newspapers to you and give you activities for you to critically read them.
And it takes time and energy to make the connections, and I think that's where sometimes we fall short, is we are pushed for time.
We are.
Every teacher in every building is pushed for time, so this is something extra, but it's worth going that extra mile for.
I'll do a quick plug for the DOE on our georgiastandards.org site, which people are on to find this video. If they scroll down, they'll see links to guides to Encyclopedia Britannica and how to use Galileo, different webinars.
There you have it.
So that might be an alternative that's paid for already. So back to the student work. Beth, tell us about this assignment that you gave and how you used an article from here to help have the students create something of their own.
We were so excited to find this because this fits with our Hunger Games novel. There was an interview in the Scope magazine back in September where they took an actor who was one of the tributes in the Hunger Games, the series, the novel, and Scope interviewed him. So it's a first-person interview on paper, and Scope asks him some questions about his experience, and he responds as himself in the first person. So we did a close reading. We pulled out, with some guidance here, pulled out some information.
Let me just stop you for a minute. Tell me a little bit about close reading. What do you mean by that?
Close reading is a strategy that we've used since day one, where we ask, it is exactly what it says it is, C-L-O-S-E. We are looking closely. And we're reading in a way that I've never taught children to read before. And we ask students to read text on their own, and then we go back and we read it aloud. We ask them to search for particular things, perhaps, in our third reading, and we also obviously attach a task to it, a writing task.
That rereading things is something that students don't always do naturally. And in real life, when we want to know something deeply, we have to reread. So you're teaching them how to do that.
Yeah, so that's a new concept for us and for them.
How do you feel about it? You can be honest with it.
We're struggling with it a little bit.
Mhm.
It takes a lot of time.
Right.
Even a short article like this.
Okay.
For struggling readers, which are in our classrooms,
Mhm.
it takes time to go through the process, but you get to the result that you need. You're able to get to the crux of, for instance, we got to the crux that we understood this character, we understood his experience in the Hunger Games film was positive, and some things that he learned about it. We got some inside information.
Do you think it's something that students will be able to take with them to other classes or to the next level of education?
Obviously, it transfers to their social studies and science, their content, other content areas. And
What I would say also, there's one element in there that you can include for your struggling readers is after you've done the second reading, or even the first reading, ask them, well, were there any words you didn't understand?
Right.
And then you can discuss those words, make sure they have the understanding of those words before they hear it the second and third time, and before they try to do the task.
Okay.
So if there's any disconnect as far as vocabulary, you can address that early on.
Tell us about the task that they had to do. And I don't know that we're going to be able to post this because of the copyright issues, but tell us about the task.
Well, one of the standards is to understand an author's point of view. And one thing that we find with our students is their knowledge of the points of view may not be where it will need to be moving forward. So here we have a first-person article, and what we're going to do is take that interview, that first-person interview, and turn it into a third-person article. So that was the focus of the activity. And the scaffolding activity takes it paragraph by paragraph and elicits from the reader what they took away as the main idea for each paragraph.
Okay.
And then they could take that and formulate an essay, a full article, and they even included an example article to show how it was done.
So they have a model of what it should look like. So they take the interview first person and turn it into a third person, kind of like what you see in a normal newspaper.
Exactly.
Okay,
It was a struggle.
it was a
It
struggle.
was a struggle.
But here's the thing about it, at the same time they're writing that, what are they actually also learning to do?
What?
They're actually learning how an article is constructed and how to read an article.
Right.
So the reading and writing component is there as well. Because if they can write it, then they should be able to read it.
So they're learning the text structure of that article. And I think you say it's a struggle, and it is a struggle. You know, struggle can be good. And it's important that kids know, you know, sometimes learning is a struggle.
The rigor is there
It is.
for us.
There's no learning without failure, so.
Exactly. And it's okay to fail, as long as you keep trying. So, in our final segment, we're gonna learn about, what's it called?
Woo-bis.
All right.